उस कमरे से ना टेबल पे मेरा वो टिश्यू बॉक्स रखा है वो ला दो। Good morning and namaskar. Welcome to the first session of MMPC 012 course code, whose course name is Strategic Management. Welcome to the IGNOU Prabha session of Management Program MBA. I am Dr. Siran Mukerji, Additional Director in IGNOU Regional Center, Noida. Once again, namaskar to all the students and welcome once again. It gives me pleasure to share this session with all of you today of strategic management, which is commonly known by the course code MMPC 012. Well, before starting the block 1, I would like to discuss with you the course structure of this particular course code of strategic management. Well, as you see here, we have, as a part of the course, we have 4 blocks, block 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the block 1 is dealing with introduction to strategic management. As the name shows, we will talk about strategic management very much in brief, give an introduction to the concept of strategic management. Then we will, since strategic management consists of strategy, tactics, policy, etc. So we will first discuss concept of strategy. We will discuss the strategic framework of strategic management in an organization, and then we will go on to discuss how strategy is in terms of global context, that is in terms of globalization. The next block, that is the block 2, in this particular course is pertaining to environmental analysis. Now, as you all must be knowing, when we talk of environmental analysis, there are basically 2 components. One is the external environment and the internal environment. So when we do the environmental analysis in the organization, we do the external environmental analysis and we do the internal environmental analysis. So this is what we're going to study in our block 2. And as a part of the environmental analysis, as you all would know, in case of all organizations, all profit-making organizations, we have to consider the competition, which is a very, very important aspect of any organization. In fact, it's a very important aspect of the business organization. So as a part of the environmental analysis, we're also going to discuss the concept of competitive analysis. Then we go on to study the block 3 in this particular course of strategic management, which is termed as the formulation of strategy. Now, in this, as perhaps you all must be knowing, might be having some brief idea, as you all know, that strategy is basically at different levels. So we have, business level strategy, that is strategic business unit strategy. Then you have the competitive strategy in order to combat with the external competition arising from the different organizations. And then we have the corporate level strategy, that is at a very macro level, at the top level management strategy. So we're going to discuss the formulation of strategy, how it is at these 3 different levels, at these 3 completely separate parameters, how do we handle them, and then we're going to discuss the process of formulating the strategy at these 3 different levels. Then once we have completed the block 3, we will move on to the block 4, which also is the last or the concluding block of this particular course of strategic management, MMPC 012, that will be titled as strategy, implementation and control, in which we will discuss Like in the previous block, we have discussed the formulation of strategy. Now, in block 4, we will move on to discuss how this particular strategy, which we have formulated for the organization, how that is going to be implemented. And once it is implemented, what are the various dimensions, what are the various factors which affect in the implementation of, or which impinge, or rather which affect the implementation of strategy in the organization. We're going to discuss those dimensions, and then we'll move on to control as a process in implementation of strategy, and then evaluation. No process is complete until unless it is evaluated, and evaluation is not only always at the end. Evaluation is a continuous process, as you must have seen in your organizations. So we will discuss implementation, we will discuss control of the process, and then we will discuss the evaluation of the strategic implementation process, and then we'll move on to discuss the corporate governance aspects of strategic management. So that is basically, I gave you a bird's eye view of the core structure of MMPC 012. Now let's see the learning outcomes of MMPC 012 of this particular course. So that means once you are through with this particular course, MMPC 012 Strategic Management, you would be having a fairly good idea of these particular aspects of MMPC 012. That is the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes would be, as we have already discussed, you would know the meaning and definition of strategic management, the concept as such. That is the process of strategic management, the nature of strategic management, the scope of strategic management, the factors affecting the strategic management, the various stakeholders in strategic management. So that you will be getting a fairly good idea in this particular course code. Next, you will also have an idea about the process of strategic management. You will get an insight into the importance, the need and importance of strategy in the global context, because no organization is nowadays functioning in isolation. All the organizations are functioning in a amongst the stakeholders. They are functioning in a particular environment, and that environment is basically the global environment. Now it is not, they don't function very locally. Most of the organizations have wider implications, wider functional areas. So we will discuss, we will know then the importance, the need, why do we need strategy in the global context. Then you would also learn and understand the, we've already discussed a few minutes back, internal and external environmental analysis. You will know what is competitive analysis. You will know the importance of competitive analysis. You will know how to formulate strategy. What are the various steps in the process of strategic management, the formulation of strategic management, the implementation of strategic management, the important stakeholders of strategic management, how the process of strategic management can be controlled, and how it is, once the process has been implemented, how do we evaluate, whether to see, whether to judge, whether to assess that the strategies that we had developed, whether that is being implemented in the right manner or not, in the right fashion or not. So all these things. And then finally the concept of corporate governance. Corporate governance, that is, who are the various important stakeholders who are involved in the process of development of strategies, implementation of strategies. So once it is expected that once you complete the strategic management course of your MBA program, of your master's degree program in management, you should be able to understand all these basic concepts of strategic management. Now we move on to the first block, that is introduction, the introduction to strategic management, wherein we have 3 units: the concept of strategy, the strategic framework, and strategy in global context. Now, without losing further time, let's go on to discuss the concept of strategy, that is the first unit. Well, what are the objectives of this particular unit? What do I mean by objectives? That is, by the end of the first unit, you should be able to understand Meaning and definition of strategy, that is, you should be able to explain, you should be able to explain or describe to anybody, or you should be able to discuss, you should be able to deliberate when anybody asks that what do you understand by strategy. So that meaning and definition of strategy you will be able to understand by the end of this first unit in the first block. Then as I said in the very beginning of this particular session, that when we talk of strategic management, there are three important concepts. One is strategy, second is policy, third is tactics. So we would also be able to understand at the end of this unit what is a strategy, what is a policy, what is a tactics, and what is the difference vis-a-vis each one of them. That is strategy versus policy, strategy versus tactics. See, only once we are able to understand the differences between these basic terminologies, then only we will be able to understand the overall concept of strategic management. So that we're going to discuss in this first unit. And then, as I said, we're going to discuss the strategy versus policy, or strategy vis-a-vis policy, strategy vis-a-vis tactics. So it will help us to have a clear cut distinction between these terms. We should be able to understand them, then only we will be able to move forward with strategic management and formulation of strategies. Then there are different levels of strategy, as we had discussed a couple of minutes back. If you remember, I had told you that there in this very learning outcomes, we discussed the sixth part, that is various levels of strategies. So that also we're going to discuss here, the various levels, the different levels or the various levels of strategy. That, like, we have corporate level strategy, then we have tactical level strategy, then we have single, let's say, strategic business unit strategies, SBU strategies, then we have the functional strategies. So we're going to discuss the differences between each of these levels, and then we will discuss the importance of strategy for an organization. Okay, now let's start with the strategic management as an introduction. Let's see what is strategic management. Well, as we have already seen a couple of minutes back, strategic management is basically a process of formulation and achievement of objectives. Now, you all know that no organization, whether it is a service organization or it is a product organization, no organization can function successfully or effectively without any objective. Whatever we try to do, first of all, we try to identify the objectives of the organization. So, objectives of the organization, the process of formulating the objectives and achievement of these objectives, that process, that very, very important process, basically it is the foundation. It lays the foundation for the structured functioning of the organization. It lays the foundation for effective functioning of the organization. That particular process is what is known as strategic management. Now, I think you would know, when we say strategic, don't you think it means something like important, crucial, vital, critical? So the existence of the organization is basically depending on the effective strategic management process. Effective formulation and achievement of objectives is basically done, ensured with the help of effective strategic management. And in strategic management, there are two words. There's one, strategy, and there's management. Management, you already know. I don't need to discuss this further. But what does strategy mean? See, strategic management is the process, whereas strategy is the means for achieving the objectives. Strategy is the path for achieving the objectives. And how do we define this path? We define it with the help of the process of strategic management. So, do you think whenever we try to explain, or let's say whenever we try to define the objectives of the organization, do we have only one objective, or for accomplishing one particular task, do we have only one method of accomplishing the task? No, we always try to do detailed analysis of the environment, of the internal environment, of the external environment. External environment, why? To see the external challenges, threats, competitors. So, in order to get a detailed account of what is going around us outside the organization, we do the environmental, external environmental analysis, and then we do the internal analysis. Internal analysis is basically conducted. Why? Because we want to know what kind of resources do we have, what resources we had, what resources do we have now, and if in case we want to achieve the objectives, we want to move ahead, then what resources will be requiring. That includes everything, all resources, everything, man, machine, material, everything. So in order to do that, we have to have different alternatives. In order to decide upon a set of objectives that the organization wants to achieve in the long term, then we have to identify the various alternatives that lead to the achievement of the objectives. And once we have enlisted, we have done a, let's say, lot of brainstorming, and we try to define the various alternatives, then we evaluate those alternatives in order to find out the best course of action. And what do we mean by, do you know, is it a best course of action until unless it is implemented? No, we can say that this particular alternative could be the best course of action if we are able to implement, we are able to achieve the objectives. So that course of action which leads to most effective achievement of objectives, that course of action would be considered to be the most appropriate course of action, and we're going to select that. And who is going to do all this? Now, strategic management, whose basic responsibility is it? As you all know, in the organization, we have at the management level, we have the top management, we have the middle management, and then we have the lower management, and then we have the operational units. Now, whose responsibility is it? Now, strategic management, as we have understood so far, it is basically very, very important function, because the entire organization is dependent on effective development of strategies, effective achievement of formulation of objectives. So whose responsibility it is? It is like, laying the path, drawing a track which all the employees are going to follow, on which the employees are going to tread. So when we talk of the path, then who's going to do it? It is the responsibility. Strategic management or formulation of strategies is the responsibility of the top level management. So I think by now you would have got a fairly good idea about the importance of this function, that is the importance of strategic management and the importance of a strategy in an organization. And thus you would be, I think, very much attuned to understand how important is this particular subject, this particular course code, MMPC 012. Okay, now that we've understood very, very, let's say, a very basic meaning of strategic management, let us now move on to understand what is a strategy. As you can see here, strategy is basically derived from the Greek word strategos, which is a combination of two words, stratos, which means army, agos means to lead. Now, strategy, I think you would have also heard at many places, it is a word which is used in the military. Strategy for combating, let's say, enemies, strategy for managing our internal security, managing our security at the borders. So that's why it basically has been derived from the Greek word strategos, which is a combination of stratos, which means army, agos means to lead. However, this military term has now been used in the business environment, in the business organization. Why? Because we feel that even the business organization is basically doing what? Business organization is also on a day-to-day basis, it is almost in a war, combating the competition. So, which means keeping our ears and eyes open. Until unless we don't do that, we are not able to know what is going on within the organization, and more importantly, what is going on outside the organization. So, strategy in an organization, as we have understood so far, is defined as a plan at each level of management. So, each level of management will have strategy. For what? Why do we need strategies? For attainment of the objectives of the organization and realization of long term goals. As I said, strategic management is the function of top level management. So when we talk of top level management is always involved in long term goals, which then percolate down to middle level management, which is responsible for unit level, business unit level goals and achievement of their objectives. And then that further translates down to the operational level management, that is the lower level management, wherein they actually translate those objectives, those strategies into action. So that's why we say that strategy is basically, it is a plan for each level of management. At the top level management, the plan is going to be very broad. Then at the middle level management, the plan further gets detailed, more structured. And then at the lower level management, it is completely structured, well defined, because it is here at this level that the implementation starts. So, and it as another feature for strategy is it is a coherent action for gaining competitive advantage. Obviously, why are we doing all this effort? Why does an organization do all this effort? The organization does all this effort. Why? To, as I said, to combat, to manage the competitive environment. And if we are able to successfully manage the competitive environment, we are able to successfully manage the external forces, then we can say that this particular organization, let's say A, has a competitive advantage over organization or its rivals, let's say organization B, C, and D. So the organization is responsible for the development of adequate strategies for having timely competitive advantage over other organizations, so that it leads and it becomes a winner. Now, Glueck has defined strategy as unified. Obviously, see, the corporate level, the top level strategy will not be different, middle level strategy will not be different, and then lower level tactics will not be different. They will be all cohesive. They will be all converging in one direction. Which direction? That is the direction of achievement of objectives. So, strategy, according to Glueck, is unified. It is comprehensive. It is integrated. It combines, rather it binds the whole organization into one whole plan. It is integrated, that relates the strategic advantage of the organization to the, as I said, organization will, that organization is considered to be a successful organization which continuously makes an analysis and studies the environment and manages the environmental challenges. So, advantage of the organization to the challenges of the environment. And once we know what are the challenges, once we know what are our threats, then we continuously design the objectives, redesign the objectives, formulate the strategies, reformulate the strategies, so as to imbibe, so as to adopt the or adapt the changes that are required to be adapted within the organization for successfully managing the organization and for striding in the right direction. Now, what are the features of strategy? Strategy is used as response to changing environment. Well, this I have already told you that environment. See, organization is considered to be successful, which remains dynamic. A static organization will function and perish. So, no organization would like to perish. No organization would like to fail. Only those organizations fail. Only those organizations are not able to manage in the changing environment which are closed. So basically, strategy makes an organization responsive to the changing environment. It is an integrated plan. Why? Because it binds the entire organization together. It binds all the divisions. It binds all the departments. It binds all the units. It binds all the employees together towards one single direction. Now, it is also adaptable. Now, I have already used this word, adopt and adapt. We not only adopt the things that are changing, we basically we adapt and accordingly improve ourselves. So the strategy is adaptable to what? As I said, opportunities, circumstances, challenges, strengths, weaknesses. So we have to continuously, like I think you might have studied in some of the other courses of business management, something called SWOT. That is strength, SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, it is not threat. Threat means what? Threat is considered to be a negative term. It is basically, we don't consider other organizations as a threat. No, we consider our perspective should be positive. We consider other organizations to be challenges. So we meet the challenges. We are able to cope the challenges. Threat is a negative term. It's a negative perspective of life. So the strategy should be adaptable to what? To any opportunities, so that we should, any opportunity coming to us, we grab that. It should be able to cope with the challenges. It should be able to continuously develop the strengths of the organization and mitigate the weaknesses of the organization. Such should be a strategy. The strategy should also be adapting, benefiting from the external, that's I said, opportunities and mitigating the threats, protecting the organization against the threats. So, which means, as I said, keep your ears and eyes always open to the cues, open to the signals that are coming from the outside. If you are able to do that, and not only keep yourself open to the signals that are coming in, but also continuously try to find out ways of combating, of managing those cues, of improving yourself as per the external environment. That is basically considered to be a successful strategy. And then always be responsive. See, as I said, an organization should be an open organization, should be a dynamic organization. Inherent dynamism in the system is essential. It is the need of the hour. If we are not dynamic, we will perish in due course of time. Now, the scope of strategy. Now, strategy can be inclusive of object setting, or it could be action exclusive of objective setting. Now, what do we mean by inclusive? That is, the strategy as action inclusive of objective setting. What do we mean by that? It is basically adoption of course of action. It is inclusive. It combines, it integrates, it includes the long-term goals and objectives, and it steers the organization in that particular direction by considering the long-term goals and objectives. What is strategy as action exclusive of objective setting? That is, objectives are in any case there. We don't always work as per this particular scope of strategy. We don't always work keeping in mind the objectives. We are not objective driven in this case, in this particular case. What are we? We are driven by the environment, by the external environment, we know in any case, this is the objective. These are our long-term goals. They are there. So we will not continuously drive according to that, will not continuously work according to that. What are we going to do? Keeping those in mind, keeping those objectives in mind, what are we going to do? We are going to check the external environment, check the internal environment, check the competition, and accordingly mold ourselves, accordingly change ourselves, according to we modify ourselves, accordingly we deploy our resources, accordingly we see what our available resources are, and we try to engage, or we try to get obtain fresh resources, We try to see what kind of finances, additional finances required. Is the present state of finance suitable to manage these objectives? If not, how exactly we are able to deploy additional financial resources, additional human resources, additional information technological resources for achievement of these objectives. So that basically is what we call as action exclusive of objective setting. Now, features, let's see what are the features of strategy. Features of strategy, we're going to study as per the perspective of Mintzberg. Mintzberg had given 5 P's of strategy. So we define or we study the features of strategy, the characteristics of strategy in terms of 5 P's. What are these 5 P's? Pattern, plan, position, perspective, and ploy. Pattern, that is, see, I don't want to repeat these things again and again. Pattern, as we have already studied, follow a particular course of action. So strategy is related to following a particular course of action. It is also a plan, that is preparing for the future. Planning means obviously preparing for the future. It could be long term plan, it could be short term plan. So that is also the feature of strategy. Position, now organization cannot be, is basically cannot, can be generic, but a generic organization manufacturing generic product, providing generic services does not succeed nowadays, because we have to continuously see the customers. Who are our customers? What are their requirements? Because the customers' requirements are continuously changing, they are also improving. There is a transformation in the requirements of the customers. So position, so strategy as a, as an important aspect of the organization, it has to look into the position, that is for niche markets. So we have to segment the customers, we have to segment our products, and we have to see whether our products are suiting these customers or not. And if they are not suiting, then we might even try to develop products and services for creation of niche markets, specialized, customized markets, so as to have a competitive advantage, have a competitive advantage position, or let's say have a gainful advantageous position over the other organizations, other competitors. So that is what we mean by position. Strategy is basically a position. It helps us, it helps the organization to um, define a particular position for itself. Then perspective, strategy is also a perspective in these terms, that is it helps in creating the vision of the organization. It helps in let's say trying to implement the vision of the organization, or succeed in implementing the vision of the achieving the vision of the organization. It is also a ploy. Ploy, that is tactics used by the organization to defend the competitors. So the 5 P's of strategy as given by Mintzberg very nicely defines the features of strategy. Nature of strategy, let's see what how strategy can be explained further. That is the nature of strategy. It involves involves both inseparable entities, the organization and the environment. Strategy cannot be developed in an organization just internally. It has to be, it basically considers both these entities inseparable, organization as well as the environment internal as well as external. Strategy cannot be structured, programmed, routine, and repetitive. As I told you, basically, strategy formulation, strategic development, strategic management is the function of the top level management. So, top level management is always looking at not structured day to day activities of the organization, it is looking at non programmed, non routine, non repetitive, non structured aspects, functions of the organization. because they are the people, the top level management, they are the people who are steering the organization in the business environment. So strategy is never programmed. Programmed, what would be programmed? Tactics would be programmed, because that is we are percolating down, we are moving down to the lower levels of the organization, that is the employees, the lower level employees, the staff, the lower level employees of the organization, wherein they are at the operational level, they are performing the same activities on a day to day basis. Therefore, strategy is not structured, it is not programmed, it is routine, it's not routine and it's not repetitive, because it is functioning in the environment and the environment is changing, as we've already studied. It is futuristic in nature, as I said. Strategy steers the organization to the right path, to the right direction. It tries to define where the organization would be in next 5 years, in next 10 years. So it is futuristic in nature. It is a combination of content and process. It is formulated at different levels. As I said, strategy formulation is at different levels. The very important crucial strategies are formulated at the top level management. However, at the business level also, at the single department level also, the strategies are formulated, but these are very short term goals. These are very short term strategies which combine to help the organization achieve the long term strategies. What is the importance of strategy? I think fairly you would have a fairly good idea of how important a strategy is for an organization. It helps in decision making and long term forecasting, because we are talking of futuristic perspective of the organization. Therefore, it is considered to be decision. It's very important for making long term decisions, for long term forecasting. It helps to manage new trends and meet competition. Obviously, when we are talking of long term forecasting, when we are talking of long term strategies, obviously, we are not talking of the present. We are talking of ensuring the preparedness of the organization for the future. So, meet the competition, enhances flexibility to meet uncertainty. So, as I said, our organization has to be flexible, it cannot be static. We have to be flexible, we have to be dynamic, we have to be open to any kind of uncertainty. So that is what the top level management is basically for. As I said, see, we are not looking at structured, programmed, routine, and repetitive activities of the organization when we are when we are formulating the strategy. Then it leads to financial benefits, increased profitability. Obviously, if we are moving in the right direction, if we are able to manage the competition, if we have a competitive advantage over, if we are gaining competitive advantage over the others, or to over our other let's say business organizations, obviously we will ensure increased profitability for us. It gives clarity of direction for the entire, it, as I said, it brings cohesion, it brings harmony, it brings convergence of all the activities. So it provides a focus to all the employees. They know what they are supposed to do, they know that this is what we are moving towards. So it then, it motivates the employees. Perhaps you might ask, how motivate the employees? Why? Because the employees will be continuously getting feedback, they will be continuously interacting. There will be a lot of communication amongst, not only at the peer level, there will be a lot of communication, intra level and inter level communication. So the employees, they will feel much more motivated, they will feel involved, they will feel important, they will have a sense of belongingness. So all this is due to the development of strategy, adequate, appropriate strategy in the organization. Now, concept of strategic management. So, now, what is basically strategic management? In brief, We have discussed strategic management at the very beginning, but now let us just quickly go through it. The concept of what is basically strategic management. Strategic management involves developing and implementing plans to help an organization achieve its goals and objectives. So, strategic management helps in developing, implementing plans, that is, strategies, plan of action to help an organization achieve its long term goals and objectives. We have, again, I would say, we have already discussed quite a lot of this, but still we'll just go on one by one. Now, what is the process of strategic management? It is basically formulation of strategy, planning the organizational structure and resource allocation. So, as a result of adequate implementation of the process of strategic management, how does the organization tend to gain? The organization is able to formulate adequate, appropriate strategies that lead to the achievement of objectives. It the process of strategic management helps in planning the organization structure. How it helps in planning the organization structure? Because we now, the objectives are clear in front of us, our goals are clear in front of us, and in order to achieve those objectives, we make an assessment of our organization. We make an assessment of our structure, organizational structure. For example, we are going for some kind of diversification. Now, in case of if we want to do some kind of diversification, let's say we were into manufacturing of tomato puree, food product, tomato puree. Now we say no, besides tomato puree, we need to be more diversified. Why? Because the market does not really need tomato puree now that much as it needed earlier. So we say no, as a part of food processing unit, we should also diversify. We should diversify into manufacturing of tomato ketchup or tomato sauce. We should go into, let's say, manufacturing of jams, so fruit jams. So now in that case, don't you think we need to design or, let's say, restructure the organization structure? And we also need to rethink about the allocation of our resources, because we need, since we are going into diversification, we will need more people, more specialized people who can manage that particular function of the organization. It could also mean, let's say, expansion. Let's say we were operating within the country and we decide that no, our market should be enhanced, our market should be expanded, and we should also try to supply our products to the SAARC nations, to the neighboring nations. So naturally, our structure, organization structure and resource, more resources would be required, a different kind of resources would be required. So all this is a result of process of strategic management. It also leads to change initiatives. As I said, any kind of expansion, any kind of diversification, all this obviously leads to, these are changes, these are big changes for the organization. And these are basically initiatives that the organization is taking. So why do we have these initiatives? Obviously, these are the result of successful strategic management process. And then a successful strategic management process also helps in controlling the processes and resources, because we know what our objectives are, we know what our goals are, we know what action we need to take, we know who is going to do that, what resources we require. So once we are able to define all this, we can reduce the waste in the organization. And it happens at a very broader level. This already we know, we have discussed that strategic management is the responsibility of the top level management. So it is at a very broader level. And then as we move down, we narrow down to, let's say, department level or unit level, then the whole strategy, it percolates down and it keeps on getting translated into activities and micro level functions of the people who are performing those activities. Approaches to strategic management, where there are basically two main approaches. in this particular course to strategic management. One is prescriptive and second one is descriptive. Now let us first see what is prescriptive approach to strategic management. Prescriptive approach focuses on how strategy should be developed. That is, this is our objective, and in order to achieve those objectives, how strategies should be developed. We are talking of the how aspect. So when we're talking of how, it means we are moving top to down, from top level to the bottom level, hierarchical, from top level in the pyramid. This prescriptive approach to strategic management is developed at the top level, and then we move down, changing it, adding to it, further enhancing it, further expanding it, and then finally implementing it at the lowest level. That is at the operational level. What is descriptive approach? Descriptive approach focuses on how strategy should be put into practice. That is, prescriptive was how the strategies, how we need to develop these strategies, the process of development of strategies. Descriptive is how to implement the strategies. The strategies are there. So descriptive approach focuses on how the strategy should be put into practice, that is implementation, execution of strategies. That is very, very important aspect. So descriptive approach to strategic management would be thinking the fact that the strategies, the objectives are already there. We will try to study, we will try to discuss in such a way that these strategies are basically, we know how these strategies are to be implemented. That is, prescriptive is how it is to be developed. Descriptive is how it is to be implemented. And descriptive model is more guided by experimenting with different methods to find solutions and learning from experience. Yeah, we learn from the experiences because we're talking of the how aspect, the process. And there we are, prescriptive is we are actually learning how to develop, not the process, how to develop the process. Here it is how to implement the process. So these are the two approaches to strategic management. Levels of strategy. There are three levels. Strategy operates at three different levels: corporate level, business level, and functional level. As the name shows, corporate level. The corporate level strategy means it is the strategy which is developed, which is formulated at the top level management. Then let's say within the top level management, under the top level management, not within, under the top level management, then we have, let's say, a number of, it's a big organization. Let's take an example that is a big organization. And I would not like to name any organization. Let's say it's a very big multinational organization, which is into, let's say, manufacturing of sports apparels, manufacturing of shoes, manufacturing of sport accessories. So there is one business unit which is responsible for manufacturing the apparels. There is one business unit which is responsible for manufacturing, let's say, different kinds of sport shoes. And then there is another manufacturing unit which is responsible for manufacturing different kinds of sports accessories. So strategy at the corporate level would be the top level management, which is developing the plan of action, a combined broad plan of action for all these three business units together. Then business level strategy would be the strategies for, let's say, apparel unit, strategies for the shoes unit, strategies for the sports accessories unit. Then the third level of strategy is the functional level. The functional level would be the strategies within, let's take one unit now. Which unit? Let's say we take the apparel unit, the sports apparel unit. Now, within the sports apparel unit, we have the marketing department, we have the finance department, we have the HR department, we have the, let's say, research and development department, R&D department, we have the IT department. Now the strategies at each department level, that is department level strategies, that is the functional level strategies, that is the third level of strategy. Now let's quickly go into it. Corporate level strategy. Corporate level strategy, as I've already told you, formulated as per the policies of the organization. They, since they're developed, they're formulated at the top level management, so it will be related to the policies of the organization. These strategies would be such which will fulfill the policies of the organization. Value oriented, conceptual, and less concrete. Yes, as I said, it will be very broad. It will have a very, very wide perspective because it's going to cover, in general, the perspective, the broad overview of the organization, organizational objectives in the next 5 years, in next 10 years, depending on the external environment, depending on the competition around it. So it is basically, it is less concrete, involves greater risk, cost, profit potential, as well as flexibility. It obviously it involves more risk because we are these are the major decisions which the organize at the organization level, at the corporate level, we are taking. So naturally that involves a lot of risk, it involves cost. It also, because it involves cost, and if in case we succeed in implementing those strategies and we are able to achieve the objectives, the profit potential, obviously it will be maximizing the profit of the organization, and it will also lead to greater flexibility. That means we are changing, we are we are we are continuously, we are open to any kind of amendments, we are open to any kind of flexibility. They are futuristic, and obviously we are talking on the top level, we are talking of the corporate level, we are talking of the organization level. So they are futuristic, they are innovative, they are pervasive. Because why innovation? Because innovation only will lead to something new. They are highest level of decision making bodies. Corporate level is highest decision making, and top level management involved with this level of strategy, which I've already told you. Now the business level strategy. Now we come down from the overall umbrella. We now gradually move down to individual strategic business units. Like I gave you the example: apparel, shoes, accessories. So these are the business level strategies, the strategies which will be developed by the people, let's say the managing director of the apparel unit, the managing director of the shoes unit, managing footwear, not shoes actually, right word would be footwear unit, and strategic business unit as, let's say, the accessories, sports accessories. Now that the kind of the apex of that particular individual unit, now they are going to further translate the strategies which have been taken, which have been formulated by the corporate level. They are further going to break it down into their own comprehensive plans. They're going to break it down into their unit level plans. That is basically business level strategy. So business level is basically how aspect. That is, they have, let's say the top level management said that we are going to develop, let's say 20%, we want 20% enhanced profit in the next financial year. Now that is very, very sketchy. It is very, it is just a generic term. Now this is the what corporate strategy. What is the organization looking at? Organization is looking at 10-20% enhanced profit in the next financial year. Now who's going to do it and how is it going to do it? Obviously the individual departments are going to, individual business units are going to do it. So the business level strategy or division level strategy is basically translating that overall macro level strategies into individualized, tailor-made strategies. That is how we are going to, what action we're going to take, what process we're going to adopt, so that at the end of the next financial year we have 20% enhanced profit. Third is the functional level strategy. Functional level strategy, as I think I've already told you, these are the operational or tactical level strategies which are, let's say, within the apparel unit, which was the business unit. Within the apparel unit, then we have marketing. So the marketing department, they will develop their own strategies. HR, operations, R&D, finance, each one of them will develop the functional unit level strategies. And all these strategies, let me tell you, they will all be converging. They will be all finally directing. They will be all finally moving towards what? They will be moving towards the corporate level strategies. Now, what are the characteristics of these three levels of strategies? As you see here, the second row shows the corporate, business, and functional levels of strategies, and the column tells us about the decision. That is the type of decision. So corporate level is conceptual. As I said, it's very less concrete. It is conceptual, broad overview. The business level is mixed. That is at the business unit level. Still, it will be a little hazy. Exactly, you will not know on a day-to-day basis what is required to be done. However, the functional level is the operational level. That is detailed. That is, in order to have 20% increased profit by the next end of the financial year, what we are required to do. So that is the operational level, decision. What is the impact? Obviously, corporate level strategies will have very, very significant impact because they are steering the organization, that they provide the direction to the organization, whether we're moving left, whether we're moving right, whether we're moving straight. So it has very, very significant implications. The business unit, business level strategies have major implications. Functional, I would not really call it insignificant, but yes, they they are handling the day to day. Immediate outcomes will not be visible in case of the functional level strategies. Risk involved, obviously, corporate level, you have, like, if you would remember that this in decision making also, the corporate level decision making has the highest risk involved. There was a continuum wherein one end of the continuum is the maximum risk, maximum uncertainty. The other end of the continuum is the least risk, maximum certainty, not uncertainty, certainty. So risk involved is high in case of corporate, business medium, functionality is low, profit potential, obviously, because corporate level strategies are the strategies which are responsible for achievement of the organizational objectives. So if the objectives are achieved, it leads to enhanced profit. Business level, medium; operational level, low. But let me tell you, corporate strategies are nothing if the functional and the business level units don't function well. If they don't understand the corporate strategies, if they are not able to convert those strategies into their actions, they they cannot succeed. Corporate level strategies cannot succeed. Time horizon, obviously, corporate level is, as I told you, it's a very, very long term, 5 years, 10 years from now. Business is medium, functional is operational, day to day basis functioning. Flexibility, corporate will be maximum flexibility. They would have strategies, would have maximum strategy flexibility. Business level, they will have less, and the functional level, they don't have any flexibility. You have to follow the directions which are coming from the high above. Adaptability, they are not adaptable. Corporate level strategies are not adaptable, whereas in case of functional or operational level, they are adaptable. Now we go on to the next aspect, that is strategy versus policy. Strategy, and you would perhaps think that strategy and policy are considered to be similar, but are they similar? No, they are not. Strategy, as you have understood by now, is the plan of action, whereas policy is the rules and regulations, the rules and procedures. So Policy is a part of strategy, but strategy is not a part of policy. Policy defines the rules, strategy plans the action. So, in order to implement that plan, we need set rules and regulations. That set of rules and regulations is the policy of the organization. What is policy? It is the formal statement as given here, outlining the guiding principles and procedural framework an organization follows to achieve. It basically is the guidelines, the guidance, the procedural framework achieves to achieve the objectives and manage its operations. So, strategy tells us what to do, policy tells us how we're going to do. That's how it is. Policy are often, and policies are obviously they are documented. They are in the form of black and white in the organization. Every organization has its own policy, manual, policy, handbook, and policies keep on changing depending on the change of the environment. So, friends, we we stop now for today. We in the next class we're going to continue with the examples of policy, and we'll continue with tactics, and also we will continue with the block 2. I hope you found this session useful. In case of any difficulties, you could get in touch with us. Thank you so much. And also please see that you would see in your course material, as we move on, there are activities. So self-assessment activities, you are advised to please do those self-assessment activities. They would help you to understand the subject better. Thank you so much. Namaskar.